friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about the several uses for your homemade upcycled jean quilts. So I thought I'd share a little bit on how to make them. And if you're totally new to sewing, these are actually pretty easy to whip together. They have quite a few uses, and I want to also cover some of the reasons why I like them so much. So yeah, you can get all fancy with your quilt making and do triangles and all kinds of different shapes. But when you're upcycling jeans, I find the best shape to go with to make it easiest to work around all the different details on your jeans and get as many of the interesting details into your quilts as possible is to go with rectangles. And I use this size right here. Gosh, I cannot remember. I think it is a 4x8. You can see it's got marks all over this. So Patrick actually made this little template for me with a handle. It makes it so much easier. You can cut your own template out of cardboard or poster board or anything like that. And then that's how I use it to draw my shapes onto the denim, because it is really tricky if you're wanting to include the pockets and interesting parts like the tags and so on, which I try to get all of that in. So for a pair like this, that's, you can see is already, half of it's already been used, I would try to get the belt loop too, but allow myself enough space here to stitch on the side of it when I'm putting my pieces together, so I'm not having to stitch through that, because that's even more. Or move it to here, so I'm getting this cool little ripped piece and part of the pocket. It's all going to depend on you, and same thing goes with the front. I try to get all of that in there, but working around those rivets. So I wouldn't have this rivet in here, but I would have these rivets. So I'd have the little coin or watch pocket and this pocket as well, or part of it anyway. And then I just draw out all the pieces I want to cut out. Like here's another interesting piece that's got a little bit of embroidery there. And these were jeans somebody donated to me. I get a lot of jeans donated to me, or I would find secondhand. And you can see here, this is actually a pretty old quilt that I just recently fixed up a little bit. I'll go more into that later, but you can see right here, I've got a little bit of a pocket, I got a rivet, I got some of the waistband, and here's another one pocket. I've got a belt loop here. If I have little work jeans that have hammer loops or anything like that, I try to make sure I get those in there as well. I do 15 rows of 12 of those rectangles. So 12 down and 15 rows across. And then when I'm making for a queen size, I don't remember how many, but I've made several queen size ones as well, because we have 2 on our bed and 2 on our guest bed, both which are queens. And then for the back, I usually try to find some kind of flannel. Now you'll see 2 different flannels here, and I'll explain that in a minute. But originally this whole quilt had this flannel all along the back and the border. It used to be you could go to Walmart and go into their clearance section and get flannel for $2 a yard. So that's where I got a lot of the flannels for my original quilts. But I don't know if you can do that anymore. I haven't even been inside of Walmart in many years. So I have no idea what they have, or if they even have clearances like that anymore. But I like the flannel for several reasons. It just makes it soft. It adds a little more warmth to it. Now, you can, if you want, when you're making an upcycled denim quilt, you can use some kind of lining in it, whether it be, some kind of batting or whatever. It's going to add a little more thickness and a little more warmth. I've actually never done that with any of my denim quilts. I've never found the need for it, because with the flannel back and the denim front, especially when you've got all these pockets in there, it makes a pretty heavy and warm quilt, which is one of the reasons why I like these so much, because they're pretty inexpensive to make. Typically, the most expensive part is going to be whatever you use for the back and the border of your quilt. If you can find it on clearance, or sometimes even just buying like flannel sheets, even if they're brand new, that works really good, especially for a quilt back, because you don't have to put a seam down the middle of the back as you do if you're buying like a 45-ish inch wide fabric from the store. You can buy like a king size, queen size, and then use that for your backing, and then still have extra fabric to do other things with, such as in our guest room, the quilt on the top of the bed. I still have 2 quilts on there, but the one on the top, I had found a good deal on some cute cabin themed flannel sheets at our local store, bought the set, and then used the flat sheet for doing the whole back of the quilt and the border itself. And then also using like the queen size sheets and the pillowcases for making, I made like a little throw pillow, and I made curtains for in there as well. So I had enough fabric, I was actually able to pull that off, as well as using pieces to mix in with the denim as well. So it wasn't just denim, it had the little flannel pieces that help tie everything together. And then I think I should have some pictures of it. When Jace was born, I had made a quilt for him with the whole space theme. I had space theme fabric all on the back and for the border, and then used the different, a few different pieces with, astronauts and stars and whatnot to mix in with the denim. And that was a fun quilt to do. But for Jax, I had made him a different kind of quilt. It was a rag style quilt, which you can also do with the denim. And I will link to the video I did on that, because it applies to the denim as well. Like the one you see here on our chair in the living room. That's a rag style quilt. The nice thing about those is you don't have to worry about a border, and you don't have to sew the back on. Pin it all together and sew the back on later. You simply are sewing the back, and if you're using batting, the batting and the front together all at the same time as you're quilting it. As you're piecing it together. And then there's no need to actually quilt it or tie it when you've got it all together, unless you want to. So you can check out that video I'll link to in the description box down below. Now for these, all I would do is, once I got the whole top put together, I would lay the flannel or whatever fabric backing I'm using out, get it all starting from the center of the quilt, start pinning it to the backing and making sure I'm pressing everything out with my hands to get it all nice and flat. Sometimes I even put weights on the corners until I get out there, and then have it all pinned together, and then I tie it together, and then I sew the border, which is usually me leaving enough of the backing that I can fold it over, and that becomes my border right there. But that's the last thing you do, is the border, because you want to get it all stitched, put together. So the same thing, after I got it pinned, I start tying it from the center, moving out. That's an important step. Center out whenever you're doing the quilts. Now that's just a quick run through. This isn't supposed to be a whole instructional video on making quilts. The whole purpose of this video was more about why I like these so much, and how, in the several different ways I use these denim quilts, which you might find interesting, and why this very quilt is so well worn and even somewhat stained, and why I had to spruce it up a bit. So obviously, making quilts for your beds, making, throw quilts for your couch to just cuddle up in, that's the obvious. But they have more uses than that, as you might have seen in some of the videos I've done in the past year, where I actually made a quilt specifically for our freezer. I've always had something over it, some kind of blanket, some kind of quilt, but then I decided I needed one that was made specifically to fit that, so that it wasn't too big or too small, and it would cover all the seams. And that's what you'll see in these pictures right here. And again, with that, I used a mix of the flannel and the denim, and then the whole back of it is flannel. And so that's just not only makes that big old freezer look a little nicer in our back foyer, but it also adds insulation to it. So, even if we don't have power, it can help keep that cold longer, but it also helps reduce the power consumptions because it's keeping it more insulated. So there's one use. And you can do this even, I was thinking you could do this with your upright freezers and fridges as well. It's just going to be a little harder than something that's a chest style, but you could still drape something over your fridge or upright freezers in the event of a power outage. That's going to help insulate it. It's going to make it harder to get in and out of, but you know, keeping it insulated is going to be important during a power outage to help keep things in there cold for as long as possible. And you know, limiting your access in and out is really important. So if you have to get into your freezers and fridge during a power outage, you get everything you need, do it one time, and then cover everything up and then leave it. Let me talk about what this particular quilt is for and why it is so worn. And that is because I had made years ago, actually the first one I made was made out of a whole bunch of different colored jeans. I'm not even sure where that one is. I must still have it around here somewhere. But when my kids were young and we have this light colored carpet, instead of buying these throw rugs, I made quilts to lay on the carpet to help protect it from stains and, you know, babies and, you know, later on dog paw prints and whatnot, just right in front of the couch where we'd kind of, you know, hang out and play and all that kind of stuff. And I love doing that. I like it so much better than throw rugs. I have since purchased throw rugs and I still have them, some braided ones, and they're nice, but they're much more of a pain to wash. And though they may stay in place a little bit better, they are harder to wash. And mine, even though the braiding of it was done well, the stitching of the braids together was really cheap or something because they all started coming apart and I had to hand stitch a lot of them back together. Whereas with something like this, I just pick it up like this, go shake it outside, throw it in the wash when it needs to be washed. And as such though, because it's being used basically as a throw rug, it over time, the jeans, especially some of these lighter colored jeans that are going to be more apt to wear through quicker because of the bleaching, or maybe they're thinner. I had a lot that had big holes in them. And then just some places where it's just developing holes from just natural wear and tear. And so both of them, yeah, this one isn't as bad as the one I've got on the floor right now. That one had much bigger holes and I did that one first. And here's a picture of it right here. And so I did the same thing where I patched it up by taking more pieces of old jeans and sewing patches like this, and then putting a whole new border around it because the border was not only very, very faded, but also getting a little tore up on the edges. So instead of making a whole new quilt, I was able to take material I already had on hand. In fact, this green flannel here was from my oldest son's old sheets. And it's still great flannel. And I bought that for him when he was a toddler. And he's going to be turning 34 very soon. So this material right here is over 30 years old. And then I just went ahead and incorporated some of it also into the top of the quilt as well, just to tie everything together, just like I did with the one that's currently on the living room floor. And so that, pretty soon I'll take that one up and wash it, and then I'll lay this one down. So I'm always trading off. That's why I like to have two. And I was mentioning the color, the one I made with the different colored denim. That one was really cool looking. And I think I eventually kind of moved on from that one because it was smaller and I wanted it to be a little bigger than that. That was one of the very first ones I made. And I actually went down to our clothing bank and bought every interesting color I could find to be able to put that one together. So that was a fun one for sure. So with that said, the one thing that you can do with recycled denim quilts like this is that when they start getting wore out, you just throw some patches on it and it still fits because it's the denim thing, and you can always do a new border if you need to. And then there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and this isn't really so much about the denim, but this kind of coincides with this, is that our furniture in our living room is just kind of outdated. It's still really well put together. It's about, I would say, I know it's well over 25 years old. I can't remember exactly what year it was we got it, but it's still very solid construction. And everything is still in really good shape, but, you know, the fabric is really outdated. And since it was lighter in color, it was getting very dingy, and I was really hating the way it looked. And I was thinking about getting some new furniture, but man, the cost of a new couch and a love seat, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And being in a place where it's hard to go try it out, ordering online and having it delivered, you don't know if you're going to like it. You might like the way it looks, but you still can't tell is it constructed well? Is it going to feel comfortable? And so I really wanted to keep that stuff, but update it. Now, what I did for a while there, and I just did this before I even started my channel, was I made a couple of those rag style quilts for our couch. So I had one that covered the whole back of the couch and then one that covered the seat. And that was cool for a while. You'd see some of my videos, like the one where I did back before Jax was born. And so it was about 5 years ago. And you can see me sitting on that couch with that quilt behind me. Well, what I did this year, because I'm like, okay, I'm so tired of this dingy fabric because it's still not covering all of it. And so what I did was I took a chance and I bought some couch and love seat covers, and I got them in olive green. I was really nervous about, because I've never used like slip covers or anything like that. And, you know, they're just going to be made kind of a one shape, you know, and I was really surprised at how good, I mean, they still have areas that still could use some working and putting it in place, but I was really surprised at how good they look. I love so much the olive green. It's kind of a velvety. I'll go ahead and link to it down below. There's many other colors to choose from as well. And love how it looked, and was able to then still utilize those quilts by putting them, I put one on the top of the love seat and one on top of the couch, and it all kind of ties together nicely. I really like it. And those quilts are a lot more easy to use now if we want to cover up with them, rather than having them be just something to cover the couch and or the love seat. But anyway, if you want to just cover your couch and love seat, yes, you can even do this. I've done that with ones in here too, some old love seats where I just threw a whole big quilt over the whole thing, covering the whole entire thing for the most part, except for the arms. And that, you know, that's a good way to do it. You're constantly having to fix it and adjust it, more so than the slip covers that fit a little tighter. But that is also an option you can use these for. Or if you decide to get some slip covers, you can still then have your little things like this to your denim quilts to kind of throw over the arm, maybe cover up some of those areas where they doesn't fit quite right. But I will say I'm surprised and do really like the covers, and I saved myself hundreds to thousands of dollars doing it that way, because I think I spent maybe it cost me about $100 to cover both the love seat and the couch in the other room. And then I ended up buying 2 more love seat ones, because I have a couple of love seats in here that also needed updating. To me, it was a worthwhile expense, because now everything looks nicer, and I can easily, well, I shouldn't say easily, but I can just take all that off, throw it in the wash, and then put it back on. Where you can't really do that with anything but your cushion covers on your couch, unless you've got one of those newer couches where the cushions, you can't take off the covers and wash them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and gave you some ideas. And again, even if you're totally new to sewing, this is something that most people can pull off. It's just learning the little tricks of, like, you know, where you start pinning it, where you start stitching it together to the back, and making sure everything's straight and even. And I'll say with the denim, it is a little harder, because if you got all the pockets, it can cause things to go a little bit askew, but sometimes those things you can easily hide and it's not that noticeable. So again, go check out that video where I was making that baby quilt, and I explained how I did that. And because it's made pretty much the same way, you know, just when you're doing the rag style, except for I did use some natural batting in there where I don't use the batting in these. Any thoughts and ideas you have, please put those in comments down below. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.